All right, welcome to the Gentleman Badass podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a really special guest with us today. Today we've got Thom Shea. Thom Shea is a former Navy SEAL sniper. He was a sniper instructor, and he also wrote a book called Unbreakable, A Navy SEAL's Way of Life. It was a big influence on my life and several of my friends as well. So looking forward to talking to him about his background and training SEALs, being a SEAL, and just really what that means and how that can apply to us regular men. So, Thom, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Jess, for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, first off, let's just start a little bit with about your background. So, maybe young life, what you were like growing up, what it was that kind of maybe drove you to think about becoming a SEAL.
Well, I'm 51 now, so I kind of grew up at a time, the best time in America, where you could, and I grew up in a small town in southern India, and my parents gave me freedom to do whatever I wanted to do as long as I didn't spend their money doing it. I could do whatever I wanted. So when I was 10 years old, I had a trap line behind our house, so I grew up outside. And I grew up, which a lot of the millennials don't understand, with guns in our cars, and we carried buck knives on our hips to school, and I thought it was a great time. And I'd always wanted to be a SEAL. I didn't know what the heck that meant at the time. I grew up with some guys that were the first guys on Iwo Jima that were the precursors to SEALs.
Wow.
And a little bit of that background. I'm very athletic. Football and track team, and I was on a wrestling team, and I played football in college, and I could go on for hours, but that's the weird kid, country boy background that found out that the only way to continue that lifestyle was in the SEAL teams.
Awesome. Yeah, I kind of had that small town. I'm a bit younger, but I grew up in a small town, and that's what we did. We walked around with BB guns, shot stuff. Yeah, they do not understand that here.
Not me.
Yeah,
I grew up in Dublin, Ireland, in a concrete jungle. So I only learned to appreciate guns and countryside and all that stuff when I immigrated here. So
had to come to America. So
well, I don't know. I think Ireland was until the late '90s was war.
Yeah, we grew up around that, but it was just pockets. It's funny because, this country really only experienced, homeland terrorism, I guess, 9/11, but we grew up around it, and it just kind of became like the norm. You just got used to it. There were certain things you did with your behavior. But I remember telling my kids the morning of 9/11, I kept them home from school that day because I knew that this was going to have a profound effect on them growing up, and then obviously the future of the country too, that it was all going to change shape too. So it was obviously a landmark day for a lot of reasons, but just personally, I'd left terrorism behind in Ireland, and then here it was following me to my new home. So
those damn Brits.
Yes, yes.
So transitioning then, you said I wish I would have thought of it this way. You said the only way to kind of continue living that country kid life was to potentially join the military or become a SEAL. So what did that transition look like for you? How did you go from being in high school to joining the military?
It wasn't easy. I got recruited to play football at West Point. So I went there for 3 years and played football and failed out my junior year in English. So it wasn't a transition. It was, oh shit, now you're at the bottom. What are you going to do?
Okay.
And a lot of people don't recover from that kind of lifestyle, or not lifestyle, but that kind of failure. And I had some gentlemen, like I said earlier, that were precursors to SEALs. And they all like, hey, dude, this is the first time you failed. It's not a big deal. Now don't play around with anything that you really don't want to do. And I'm like, well, hell, Pat, I don't know how to swim, but I really want to be a SEAL. And he said, it doesn't matter if you can swim. Just commit to it. and you got to go sign up for it. Until you sign up for it, it ain't never going to happen. So I went down to the recruiting office immediately and signed up for the SEAL program, and I could not swim when I signed up.
So it was trial by fire for you then?
Trial by, if you don't, in the SEAL program, if you don't figure it out really quick, they just get rid of you.
Yeah.
And so I enlisted in the Navy specifically to go into the SEAL program, and I enlisted as a corpsman or a medic, because I knew that medics have to go out on every mission, and tried to find a job that would make me relevant in the SEAL teams. And then I tried my long trial to become a SEAL, and I started with class 195 and got injured in Hell Week 5 weeks later. Got turned back one class, made it to Hell Week again, dislocated my shoulder. And then they allowed me to miss one class. I started up my third class, 198, made it to Hell Week again, had pneumonia. So they didn't kick me out. They're like, okay, well, we know you're not going to quit, which is, we like that about you, but you got to figure out how not to get injured. And so I classed up 199 and with pneumonia, and made it to Hell Week again, woke up in the hospital, and they kicked me out of training because I couldn't find a way not to get injured. And then I made it back to class 207 about 9 months later, because I went to the admiral of the hospital where I worked every single day and asked him to send me back. And he laughed at me. He said, there's no way we're going to send you back. You got to be here for 2 years. And I just bugged him to death until he either quit himself or felt sorry for me and sent me back. And by the time I got back, I think I had cured my problem of trying to be number one all the time. And so I made it. You don't make it through there unscathed, but I graduated. We started out with 111 really great athletes in 207 and graduated 11.
So do you credit with the process of you kind of lowering your expectation to not be the number one graduate from the class, but getting you through finally through Hell Week, or were there other things that, obviously going through it a couple of times, you kind of knew what was coming on the horizon, but what else did you do to make sure you didn't get injured and you were able to complete it?
I don't think I lowered my expectations. It meant that I actually raised my expectations, but decided that it's important as making it to the end. I remember telling myself that, you can beat this guy, but the cost of
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Breaking up.
Myself, I hate to say it out loud, but you there?
Yeah, you're breaking up just a bit. I think we missed that.
We just missed that last 30 seconds.
Yeah. So I decided that it would be best to look at myself as a predator. And if a predator got injured, you ain't going to eat. And I then just made sure I made it through each day without debilitating injuries.
Okay. Interesting. So how many times then did you have to start? Was it, if I was counting right, about 5 times you started?
Yeah, I'm the only one that I know of that was in Hell Week 5 times.
Ugh.
Wow.
Well, and there's, from what I understand, there's guys that quit the first day. Was it just never a question in your mind? Were you dreading that first day or restarting, or was it just, this is what I'm going to do no matter what?
Oh, there's the canned answer that I was never going to quit, but I wanted to quit all the time. More so in the 5th class, when you knew what was going to come and what was on the horizon. Like, oh shit, this is going to hurt. Dude, I do not want to do this. And but I just found the right mindset of make it through every evolution, and then make it through the next one, and make it through the next one. And don't decide until the weekend on what you're going to do. And then on the weekend, go, shit, I ain't going to decide until Monday. And you keep hedging that bet, so to speak. I'm just going to keep putting it off. And I put it off long enough to make it through.
Yeah, I've heard that said. It's not that you were just never going to quit. You thought about quitting all the time, and it's that attitude and just that mental strength that kind of powers you through wanting to quit the whole time.
Yep. And a lot of people, you didn't ask this. A lot of people think SEALs are tough. I think SEALs understand how fragile things are because they go through hell. And it's fragile. At any moment in time, the instructor staff could ramp it up to the point where you would kill yourself or you would quit. And I was an instructor for 3 years too, and you realize that to be really tough, you got to be very sensitive to how quick things can go to hell. And so it's not how tough you are. It's your ability to recognize that things are getting shitty very quickly, and to taper back a little bit quicker than the guys that are trying to be number one or haven't gone through bad situations.
Okay. So then from there, you went on to actually lead SEALs. How long did that take? What did that process look like for you?
Well, it's a long process. They don't let you lead until you've proven yourself probably 4 times. So you go through SEAL training, you end up in another 6-month-long training called advanced training, and that's when you get your trident. And then you go to a team, and you get selected into a platoon, and then that platoon trains for about 2 years and then goes on a deployment. And then your first platoon, it doesn't matter how smart you are, you're in the back. They don't care if you have a PhD in nuclear fusion. They don't care about your rank. You're just not somebody with experience. And that's the first 2 platoons are that way. You gain a little experience, you gain a little leadership. And after my first 2 platoons at Team 2, I got orders to become a SEAL instructor, which I think is the world, because you get to see tough break is to break them, to take the bass, if you will, and make them soft, and see what they're going to do when they fall apart.
Okay.
So
then I made chief. And I was selected to go back to SEAL Team 7 and take over a platoon. And I'm sure there's a lot of questions about that Afghanistan deployment, but that's how you progress through the teams into a leadership role.
Okay. And you had a question?
Yeah, I had a question. So if I have the dates right, from 2009 roughly to 2011. You were the officer in charge of SEAL Sniper School, right? And you're credited with kind of changing a lot of things there to increase the graduation rate, and still keep the efficiency of the sniper top notch. Are you in a position to talk about what you saw that needed to be changed there and how you went about it?
Yeah, it's not top secret, so I can talk about it. I had just come back from Afghanistan, where we are a very sniper-heavy deployment. In English terms, we killed a lot of people. And so I had come out of that experience realizing that I would like to then teach other people what I had learned. So then I got orders to take over the sniper course. And what I saw there were 3 things. The first one was a staff that didn't have a lot of experience. They had just been training. And experiences, if you don't get a new experience every year, you're outdated, especially in combat. And then the second issue was the grading criteria was a bit lax. And the third issue was we needed more snipers in the SEAL teams. So I was compounded to solve those three problems. So I made it harder. I made the grading criteria harder. I opened up a course in California to make it harder. And I made the staff, if you want to teach it, you have to shoot the tests and qualify expert. And they hated me for it. I'm like, if you're going to teach somebody something, you better be able to do it yourself. And so that's how I solved it.
Okay.
By making it harder, making it more accountable, and making it more realistic.
And so did the theater of Afghanistan and more kind of urban warfare versus probably, I'm assuming that a lot of the sniper school teachings were Vietnam era. Did that change? Did that have an effect on why you saw a need to change things and kind of the direction that America may take in future conflicts and where those battlefields may be? Was that part of it, or it
Not
just
necessarily. So what I found to be true both in the teams and in business or freaking life, the basics count more than anything. And all I did was get back more to the basics of shooting. And obviously in sniping, there are a lot of series of basic skill sets. One is to be able to shoot long distance repetitively. And the other one is to be able to shoot from any position out to long distance. The one thing that I had seen was that they were laying on their belly shooting too much. So I said, we're going to get up and it's more urban shooting. So we're going to get up and sit down and figure out how to shoot accurately at distance. And then how to shoot moving targets while seated at distance. And because I never shot anybody laying on my belly in my entire life. And so I'm like, it's a stupid skill set. So we got to teach them how to be effective in theater wherever they go. But that's maybe the answer to your question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I find it interesting that, you actually made it harder. And if what Mick was saying earlier, graduation, you actually had more graduates through the school that way, or is that? Yeah,
it's a phenomenon that a lot of people don't understand. Is when you actually make things harder, more people succeed doing it. And it's just not intuitive. So the key to being a SEAL is it's hard anyway. And they make training so hard that only the people who are really committed really make it through. And what I notice about shooting is if you don't expect people to shoot well, they won't shoot well. Mm. And so I said, you're going to graduate. Everybody's got to get 80% instead of 70%. Mm. And you have to only miss 2 rounds out of 10, 3, which most shooters wouldn't think that's a problem, but you got to be accurate every time. We want you to be accurate every time you touch the gun. And everybody rose to the occasion.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's actually a good segue kind of into our next question. When Mick and I were talking about, what we wanted to ask you, one of the things that we've heard is that, what is the statistics? Like 50% of high school graduates couldn't even qualify for military service.
It's actually, I think it's higher than that. If there was a draft initiated today, most high school kids wouldn't qualify.
And so, from what we're also hearing, that's putting a big strain on special forces. You said back in your time, they needed more snipers. It sounds like nowadays they just need more special forces in general. So do you see the mission changing? Do you see selection changing, or what's your view on that?
Well, there's a lot of questions there. I'm trying to put them into one answer. Like I said earlier, the basics are the key. So all SEAL training is fundamentals. And one of those fundamentals or basic skill sets is to be physically fit. I'll cut every fucking day, which is rare for humans. Yeah. So on Monday, you got to be able to perform. On Tuesday, you got to be able to perform 7 days a week for 6 months. And can you do basic things that we knew in the SEAL teams you have to be able to do? So not a lot of people can do 100 push-ups in 2 minutes. But anybody can train themselves to do that. So it's 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 12 pull-ups, and then a 3-mile run and an 800-meter swim. I don't remember the times, but they're pretty quick. Anybody can actually train themselves to be at that skill level, and that's just to make it into training. Mm. To graduate, it's still the same thing. You got to pass those same standards. And then throughout training, it's not that all the things are very hard. It's just that it's every day in your face. You stub your toe, you go slower. It's hard to go 6 months without getting sick. So 1 week you'll be sick, or somebody yells at you, or your wife cheats on you, or all that shit that happens for human beings. Most people can't process that, so they quit. Mm. And the big demonstrative thing that happens that you may have heard about is the cold water differentiates the man from the boy. Mm. Can you freeze, and then after freezing get up and be asked to do something very difficult? And most men can't, or women can't mentally endure that. Mm. And you're so cold you want to die. You're like, I wish somebody would kill me because this is miserable. And then they get up and they're like, all right, run 4 miles in 30 minutes. You're like, shit, I couldn't do that when I was fresh. How am I going to do it now? And they just keep you mentally challenged to the point where you just go, you know what? I'm just going to do it because I said I'd be here. Which is the only thing that makes a SEAL different than other human beings is when a SEAL promises to do something, get out of the way. Mm. It may be ugly, but it's going to happen. And that's really the only thing SEAL training is designed to do at the BUDS level, is to make them somebody that when they make a promise, they can keep it. Mm.
I think that's powerful. I mean, our expertise is certainly not military. We're martial artists, but as jiu-jitsu instructors, we see that all the time. You can have these studs come in that think they're going to be badasses, and they're gone in a month. And there's usually, like you mentioned, some little factor that if even someone is dedicated, there's something that happens. There's an injury, there's a sickness or something, and all of a sudden, they were coming, and then they're gone.
Yeah, especially in jiu-jitsu, because it's that fear of commitment and honoring your commitment. I mean, you can go down the street from our gym and pay some guy and you'll become a black belt in a year, but to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu is typically a 10-year process.
It's forever. Yeah, that's a long one.
And most people are like, yeah, I don't think so. It's like the guys that walk in going, hey, I want to learn how to fight, and I'm hoping that I can fight in September. I'm like, I don't know. No, you got it wrong. So the long game and kind of being committed to something for a long period of time is something that we kind of see vastly kind of disappearing from, especially young people, which is part of the reason why Josh and I are so passionate about the guests and the idea behind this podcast, is that the process of becoming a gentleman badass isn't something, that happens overnight. You don't just stick on a baseball cap or a t-shirt and go, right, I'm it now. Yeah. You got to wear them down and then build them back up. So we can appreciate that, honoring the commitment.
So go for it. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we always used to sit around thinking what would be the greatest thing to tell somebody who wants to be a SEAL. And 2 things always came out. One is put ice in a bathtub and sit it until you pass out. If you can't do that, don't even show up. The other one was, if somebody wants to become a SEAL, break their finger and see if they want to become a SEAL, which is probably more a jiu-jitsu trait. Oh, you want to learn jiu-jitsu? All right, we're going to break your finger on the first day and see if you come back for day 2.
Yeah.
We see a lot of people disappearing.
For a lot less than a broken finger.
Yeah, the first time they get strangled, or the first time they feel like some guy crushing them, a lot of times then they're out the door.
Yep.
And actually, there's a saying in jiu-jitsu, typically blue belt level is about 3 years of training. But there's a saying in jiu-jitsu that if you want to see a jiu-jitsu student disappear, put a blue belt on him. Because about 3 years is that breaking point where they're thinking, man, I still have 7 more years of this shit left before I can, so it's tough.
Yeah.
So, considering that special forces in general is hurting, they don't have the numbers. Do you see?
I don't think it's hurting.
No? Okay.
The numbers are not right. There's more people trying to become a SEAL now than in history.
Okay.
It's not that we can't generate enough SEALs. It's there's the political part of it. Congress wants more SEALs, but there's not really a call to have more special forces.
Okay.
It's supposed to be special. Like, there's 20,000 Green Beret and 2,500 SEALs. And it's just because there are more combat-related jobs for special forces, that's why they have more.
Okay.
There's not a lot of jobs for SEALs. It's very specific of what we go out and do, even though we do it well. But you don't really need to increase special forces.
Okay.
It's like if you had a company that had 10 people in it and you're doing really well, you probably don't need to grow to 100.
Gotcha.
It's not really needed. And training hasn't really changed. They still have 85% attrition rate. They still start out with around 120 and graduate few after that.
Okay. Well, I guess that's good to know. It's kind of political on that end then. Interesting. So other than filling filling a bathtub full of ice and sitting in it till you pass out or breaking a finger, do you have any kind of advice for someone who wants to go that route to become a SEAL or Special Forces in general?
Yeah, I think we talked about it a couple seconds ago. It's a lifestyle. It's not, I'm going to go try it and see if it works out for me, because it ain't going to work out for 3 years. Even when you graduate, nobody gives a shit about you. And it's an organization built on 20 years in. It will destroy you.
Okay. So if you could go back in time then, is there anything that you would change about your just your military training, your career, anything you would change about the way you did things?
God, no. I don't think so. I wish I had not got divorced.
Okay.
But that had nothing to do with being a SEAL.
Okay.
Those just bad choices as a man. But no, there's nothing I don't think could have made it any better or different. I shot 200,000 rounds a year while I was an operator. Can't shoot anymore. And I was a great athlete. And I didn't get any debilitating injuries. I don't look back with any negative spin on the last 23 years of my career.
Do you miss it? Do you miss being an operator? Do you miss being an operator?
I do. I do alone. When I'm not busy and I'm sitting there doing something that, just by myself, I'm like, sometimes I miss the boys. But I got all the things done that I wanted to do. And Stacy, my wife, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do that anymore. And I wasn't, when I got out of the operational side of it, I was 42.
Okay.
And it's harder for a 42-year-old guy to recover physically, and the young guys were, you can drink a beer or a keg of
Yeah.
and it was time for me to go due to the age and my physical ability.
Okay. So then transitioning kind of away from the military aspect of it, I guess it's still partially involved in the next question, but in the book you talk about, let me read this. So you said you talk about the human instinct and the resistance to change at all costs. And this was actually this was probably what was the most beneficial for me in the book is learning about the internal dialogue and all of that. So could you tell us a little bit about kind of the internal dialogue, the resistance to change for all humans, and then how you can really kind of unleash superpowers by controlling that?
Well, I'll define internal dialogue as how we make sense of our environment. So how we internalize and filter what we're sensing, and how that actually how you process that is like you look outside. Hey, it's sunny, good, bad. I don't like it. I do like it. How somebody would process jiu-jitsu by hearing about it, like, well, that's not for me, and how we internally process things. So that's how I define that internal dialogue.
Okay.
The other question is, rephrase the second question, if you will.
So you talked about the human instinct to resist change at all costs.
Yeah, nobody wants change unless they get older and wiser. And SEALs had a problem called they hate the way things are and they hate when things change, which makes them bitter. And but the human condition resists change because it's uncomfortable. Whether it's learning something new, whether it's you got a white belt and you're teaching them a brand new ground technique, the moment you start learning something new, it's very uncomfortable. And the human condition resists that because it's easier. Can I just do it the other way? No, you got to do it this way. No, I'm going to teach you a new technique. Fuck, and all that stuff that goes on internally. But the older we get, like now, you realize things change all the time. And the quicker you allow change to happen, the less miserable you are and the less resistant you are. And you have to teach yourself that. And how you process that is what I call internal dialogue. So if you resist it internally, you cannot process it. So like if you guys said, hey, we're going to teach you this new, choke, and I resist it internally, it doesn't matter if the choke is viable. I just won't learn it. And so what I learned to do as a SEAL, and now when I train people, I only attack how they're processing it. And people resist everything the first time. Like, here's how to make $1 million. Nah, I don't want to. I want to watch TV. Fuck, you don't want to make $1 million? Nah, I'm good. You want to lose weight? Well, nah, I'm good. You have to fight again on Saturday? No, I don't want to. Well, if you went on Saturday, you would have won world championships because everybody else didn't come and you'd have been the only one. But people don't want to process things like that. I just simplified it, but that human condition of resisting everything is usually of detriment to that person.
But do you think if, I'd probably take a little bit of issue that I don't think it's everybody, but I think successful people, it's been my experience to become a world champion or whatever, you have to have some obsession about that. And I think some of that obsession sometimes opens you up to the whole process of learning and being willing to take on new information. How do you, if successful people are this way, how do you break down those walls to the rest of the people? I mean, you know, I can look in my gym and look across the mat and go, okay, you'll never be a world champion, you'll never be a world champion, you'll never be a world champion. I'll be honest, like in my assessment of them, because I know what it took me to get there, and I can recognize that this person just doesn't have it. It's not that they're not a good person and well-intentioned, but they just don't have it. How do we break down those walls to those people to, when it's appropriate, let them down easy, and then to the ones with potential? Is there a, I'm not looking for a magic pill, but is there a fast track to get them to get in touch with that internal dialogue? Because I think successful people probably have it and just take it for granted that we're constantly talking to ourselves.
Right. But two answers, because I'm faced with this training clients, across the nation right now. How do you raise everybody's level? The first answer is the reason why successful people are that way is they recognize that they're not of benefit to themselves. Like, you can't win world championships training by yourself. It cannot happen.
Right.
You can't be the best shot in the world by going out by yourself and shooting. You have to have, because you realize when you'll talk yourself out of it. Like, you won't train really hard every time you need to train without a coach. And most successful people realize that fundamental truth. So then they expose themselves to be coached. That's what I think the precursor to success is recognizing you can't do anything by yourself. And once you open yourself up to being coached, a whole other world becomes available. And then the other part is, I think it doesn't matter if you try to be world champion. You should be exposed to the fact that you limit yourself when you're doing it by yourself. So it doesn't matter. So you have 15 people in the gym, none of them may be world champion. But the ones that don't overcome this internal, fuck, I can't do this, I'm woe is me, I can't work out like him, they get stuck in that. And what I've seen great coaches do is go, it doesn't matter how you compare out, I want you to stop limiting yourself. And good coaches bring that out. Then all of a sudden, the guy that was a white belt, 10 years later, you're like, where'd you come from? Like, I realized I was a piece of shit, and I started getting coached. Bam, and it happens very quickly. Whether they make world champion, it doesn't matter.
Okay. So in your book, you can choose to kind of give out the secret sauce if you want. I haven't said it on any of our podcasts, even though we've outlined your book, but there were some exercises that you gave in your book that I found very, very beneficial. So not only kind of addressing the internal dialogue and actually writing down the things that are saying to you, but some other physical things to break that down. So what do you have along those lines? What would you like to share along those lines?
You mean what I wrote about in the book, the first 3 lessons? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. So, for everybody listening, I wrote this book for my kids. Because I left for Afghanistan pretty clear that I wasn't going to make it. And that was a lot of gravity. And I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? I'm going to get so debilitatingly injured, I won't be able to be a good dad. So Stacy and I decided to, before I went out on every mission, pass along to the kids something that I wanted them to know about me or about something that they should do. And so lesson 1, unintentionally, has been the most profound of all, is be able to do 3 simple things a day for 21 days straight. And then begin to expose yourself to every freaking excuse that would try to talk you out of doing them. And it's very simple things. do 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, and 10 squats each night before you go to bed and each morning when you wake up for 21 days. And every new week you add 10 to that. Right now there's over 2,000 people that have tried to do that 21-day challenge, and only 200 people have done it. Because what I found out is their internal dialogue talks them out of it. They excuse themselves from what I call honoring their word. I was like, shit, man, that's profound. It's not how hard things are. It's just we literally talk ourselves out of everything. And now as I train executive clients, I realize the same thing goes on there. Is they talk themselves out of everything. And reasons are subtle and seductive and believable. And like I can convince you, like if you're my sensei, I go, hey, I broke my ankle. That's believable. Me as an instructor go, I don't care. Come in. We'll do something that doesn't involve your ankle. But people now use all these reasons to get out of everything. And when I started seeing that, once I retired, when I started using that as a training, modality, I was like, once you beat your reasons, look out. If you can teach somebody to beat their reasons, like going in against somebody that's number 1 ranked, watch that person not be functional. Like they're beginning to go, I'm not going to be good. I'm not even going to try. He's going to take me down. He's going to choke me out. As opposed to I'm just going to go in and hammer him like he's just some other nug in the gym. But those things that we go, how we process that inside our heads can actually be taught.
Yeah, I actually did the 21-day challenge. And I think it's designed so well because it's at moments of maximum like internal conflict. There are so many times I would be like, I just want to go to bed, or the internal dialogue is saying, I don't want to do 30 push-ups because I'll be sweaty when I go to bed. All these other things. For me, honestly, I never talked myself out of it. And so part of this is you want to do it 21 days straight without missing a single day. And if you miss a single day, you got to start again.
You got to start over.
So the days that I missed were the days where I just woke up and I'd forgotten about it. And then I realized, well, there's definitely methods you could to take to not forget about it. But for me, I really tried to be very strict that if it wasn't immediately like set foot out of bed and do my push-ups, or actually I did it when I was letting my dog out. If I forgot and the dog came back in and it wasn't done, I didn't count it. So it took me, I think it took me 2 months to finally get, it might have been 2.5 months to get the 21 days. And I think I've heard on your podcast that you've only had, out of those 2,000 people that have tried it, only 3 or so have actually done it without fail?
200 now.
Oh, without, so straight through with not missing a single day.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least they said they did
it. They did.
I don't track personally. But, so what came out of that was there are 3 fundamental excuses that I've seen, and yours was the one I exposed was one. So pain or injury is a beautiful excuse. The other one is I forgot. So those 2 of the 4 are the most profound. The other one is I don't have support. So, I'm going to try something big and then my wife doesn't want me to do it. Or, I go to a coach and go, hey, I want to do this. And the coach goes, no, I'm not going to support it. And then the 4th one is the weird one. It's when you hear yourself say, this is stupid. And, especially in jiu-jitsu, we did a 12-hour clinic here at a gym in my first year when I retired. And I said, we're going to do 12 hours of jiu-jitsu. And this is stupid comes up in hour 6. God dang, I got to do this. So we did 5 minutes of pull-ups, and then we'd fight. And then 15 minutes of leg lifts, and then fight. And then in hour 6, I said, we're getting in the ice tub. So everybody got in the ice tub. And then we'd go out and fight. And in the 11th hour, they were the best, pristine, on-point fighters that I'd ever seen. They didn't fuck around. There was no wasting time. Go for it immediately. And I said, that's how you should do it in the first round.
Interesting.
But you don't expose all that until you overcome all these internal excuses, I call them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that was one of the lessons from the book. The other one that we've done 25, lesson 3 was to be able to walk for 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And I wish I hadn't put it in there, because now I've done 25 of them. And we just did one 2 weekends ago, and it exposes all of your weaknesses. And I call it overcoming your self-limits. And now we got people from all over the world that come in solely to realize what their limiting factors are in their life. And then once learn them, take them back, go back to your life and don't have them limit you.
Yeah.
But boy, in 24 hours, you let your guard down, and it feels like shit. You get nauseated, you get tired, your feet are swollen, you diarrhea or whatever, you're puking or whatever, and people begin to realize that they can do a lot more than they thought possible. Mm. And I thought it was a good thing to pass on to the kids.
Yeah.
And my daughter has done it with me. She's the only one.
Well, I tell you what, my buddy Colt was actually just down there with you a couple weeks ago, and he was actually last year too. And I tell you what, the turnaround in that guy's life has been amazing. He's the one that introduced me to you in the beginning, and just love that guy and what he's been able to do.
I have a question about the process of the book. So you wanted to, if you were injured or killed in action, you wanted your children to kind of know about you, what made you tick, all of these memories. Was the plan for it just to be a personal thing between you and your kids, or was it to be a book at that point?
I was very private as a SEAL.
Okay.
And it was intentionally meant just for my kids. And my wife convinced me to get it professionally edited, because if you had read the manuscript, you'd be like, dude, okay.
Well, I think the beautiful irony is that...
Some of it's written in crayon, some of it's written in blood. And in the process of getting it edited, the publisher, just an independent publisher, said, would you consider putting it up on Amazon? And I literally said, who the hell would read this? It's not for anybody to read. And he goes, yeah, let's give it a try. But the original title was Spartan Woman. And I wanted the kids to know that without a strong woman, men suck. And the publisher's like, nah, that ain't going to sell. We're just going to change it. And so I said, let's try it. So now that I'm retired, I was in the process of retiring. Then I retired, and then he said, do you think we could put it up on Amazon? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I didn't have any idea what would happen after that. And it just went viral. Mm. And which put me in the public eye, talking about things that I thought were private, which was ruthless for me. But I've adapted since then. Yeah.
Well, I think just the poetic irony of this whole thing is that you can't finish West Point because you fail English, and now you're a best-selling author. That's just beautiful.
The biggest smack in the military face was after I retired. The Department of Military Instruction at West Point called me up and wanted me to come talk to the junior class about leadership.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, hey, you guys failed me out. Why do you want me to come back? But they paid me to go out there and talk to the entire, I think there was 1,000 people in the audience about combat leadership. Okay. Which I thought was an honor at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So you talked about potentially, wanting to call the book Spartan Woman or Spartan Wife, And so we're starting to run out of time. I definitely wanted to touch on this point because you're very vocal in the book at how instrumental your wife was in, really kind of almost keeping you alive in Afghanistan, and really kind of giving you the power that you need, and being a teammate kind of unlike other teammates that you might have. So, in this whole macho era, kind of this macho space where we probably operate, there's kind of a clash between macho dudes and good relationships or whatnot, and you kind of you stand in the face of that. So tell us a little bit about how your wife was able to really be a benefit and a Spartan wife for you while you were at war.
Yeah, so it's not feminine to be in a profound relationship. So I can't absorb what you're saying well, simply because I think men who downplay a strong relationship are weak. So why the fuck get married?
Right.
If you're not going to have a partner that's equal. So Stacy, she's very feminine. So it's not the fact that she's feminine and she makes me lesser or weaker. She demands that I be masculine, and that I be tough, and that I, go out and do what I say I'm going to freaking do. And she loved the fact that I was a warrior, and she wanted me to go kill bad guys. So that allowed me a lot of space to operate, as opposed to having a spouse that didn't want me to be a SEAL, that didn't like the violent lifestyle, and didn't like the cussing and the carrying on around the house. She corrects me on it, but she enjoys the masculinity of it. And so it allowed me to be better at my job. And I didn't have to hide anything. And which allows great conversations in a relationship, even the bad ones. Like, I feel terrible and I don't want to be in combat anymore. And she'd be like, "You're still there. Fucking fight until you get home. Don't let your guard down." I'm like, God, you mean I got to go out and do this again? She goes, yeah, go do it again. And so that encouragement, which is what I call the Spartan wife phenomenon, is, come home on your shield or carry the fucking thing home. So go fight, because that's who you are. And she embraced that.
Awesome. So are there things that, now that you're not at war, are there things that are kind of foundational to help your relationship, to keep growing your relationship, to keep moving forward? Anything that you guys implement to keep a strong relationship?
Who the hell said I wasn't at war? I think business is worse than war.
Gotcha. Okay.
No, so I think there's 5 areas in life that we're committed to for each other. Our health, what we pursue physically. I run ultra marathons now, and she does her physical pursuit. And I'm always learning new things, and I talk to her about them, and she talks to me about what she's learning. And obviously, we work on this business together, and she's a political consultant, so that's all above board. And we talk about that third area called wealth, and that makes up our relationship. That's how we relate to each other. And obviously, the intimacy is a part of that. And we talk openly about what we value spiritually. So those 5 areas of physical, intellectual, wealth, relationship, and spiritual are how we relate to each other. And it always has to be moving forward. Like if I'm stale, she makes me move forward. And if she gets stale, I make her move forward. And what I found to be a fundamental truth is, if you cannot spend 30 minutes a day with your spouse talking about those 5 things, you're screwed.
Okay.
And that 30 minutes a day makes up for all the millions of hours that you're not there with them. And it's profound. So commit to 30 minutes a day for a year. How many men would do that?
Yeah.
They do it with their buddies.
Yeah.
So do it with the one that you married. So if you don't figure that out, half of your income is going to be gone pretty soon. So figure that out. and it'll make a huge difference.
I bet. Yeah, that's.
My wife is gonna steal this.
Yeah.
My wife is a matchmaker.
Hey, I just made you give 30 minutes, not hours,
Yeah.
okay?
No, we're blessed that way. We do that. But she is a matchmaker, so I joke that every day is a job interview for me. But she's gonna love what you just said, because if people did that, she would be out of a job, and she'd be okay with being out of a job. But that is awesome. That is great advice.
Yep.
All right, so we are running out of time. I did want to ask, from what I understand, following you online, is there another book coming out?
Yes, I'm about 7/8 through now, and then the editing process is preparing for Worlds. It gets really brutal.
I'll bet.
Now, how long it took you to write it, the editing is just lethal. And so I'm thinking at the beginning of the year, the second book will be out.
Okay. And any idea that you can give us on the topic or the what it's going to cover?
I've been warned not to put the title out because somebody will steal it.
Okay, that's wise.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would. It's I gave it out several times. About 5 months ago, and somebody took one of the titles already.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Well,
my publisher's like, dude, just stop.
Just leave.
Just stop.
Yeah. Well, you could write a book on basket weaving, and I'd probably still pick it up. So I'm looking forward to whatever that is. We are just a couple. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we are running out of time. So I just wanted to last question. Where can people find you? Because the 24-hour challenge that you're talking about is actually a leadership event that you put on once a year, is it? So if people are interested in the 24-hour challenge, or really just learning more about you and getting your book, where can they find you?
But is one online places. BreakableLessons.com, where the lessons are placed online, and you sign up and do the lesson. Help. And the other one is Unbreakable Podcast, where all of our podcasts get populated. And then I'm on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn under Thom Shea, THOMSHEA.
What's the Adamantine Alliance?
It's the holding company that we had to create an LLC, and that's Adamantine means unbreakable.
Okay.
Alliance is, I called it the Unbreakable Bond, and it sounded like a dumb name for a company, so we called it Adamantine Alliance.
Okay. I always just assumed you got adamantine from the adamantium from Wolverine, but I suppose the comics probably got it from the actual term, huh?
Yeah, well, the term means something that doesn't exist until heat and pressure is applied.
Oh, perfect.
And I believe in heat and pressure.
Yeah.
Heat, pressure, and chaos create success.
Excellent. Well, any final thoughts? Anything you want to leave us with today?
Where are you guys? Where's your gym?
Omaha, Nebraska. I just came from. We're also instructors at a place called 88 Tactical out here, and I just came from there. And told we're actually filming this in my basement is an Irish pub. I turned into an Irish pub as soon as my kids all got old enough and moved out. But I just told those guys out at 88 Tactical that we were going to have you on the podcast, and there was a lot of, "Are you kidding me? This is so cool!" And they're like, "We need to get him to Omaha." I'm like, "Well, we can contact him now." So you may be hearing from those guys too.
Oh, good. So what are you doing? I'm asking, what are you doing the tactical thing? Just shooting and clearance, or what?
Everything. 88 Tactical, you can look it up. It's kind of a one-of-a-kind. I don't think they like the term Gumtree Club, but that's kind of what it is. But it's their main focus originally was law enforcement and military, teaching tactical shooting, room clearing, you name it, precision rifle. But then they felt that there was a need in the civilian community to learn this too. So some of their syllabus is aimed towards the civilian community with CCW. Josh and I are actually working on a curriculum, everyday armed combatives. And it's kind of a multifaceted machine.
Who's the owner?
Shea DeGan.
I know him.
Yeah, he said I think you guys have met, or at least he's had you in or something like that. But yeah, he said he knew you.
About 6 years ago, I met him when I was out in Omaha. Yeah.
What were you doing here? Were you speaking?
I was training a client that was living in Omaha.
Okay.
But yeah. No, I want to come out.
All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna
throw some lead down range and.
Oh well, they have two amazing facilities here. They have an outdoor facility with bunkhouses, a lodge, and what's the long range there?
I think it's
500.
Yeah, about 500 max.
And then they have a one-of-a-kind, state-of-the-art indoor facility with there's a 360-degree range in there where you can move and shoot in towards the walls. I mean, you can muzzle shoot that wall with it. And then they have it's kind of one of a kind because they have a lounge and a bar there, so everything is
that always makes for good shooting.
Yeah,
right there.
Well, it's actually pretty cool how they have it because you have a scan card, and as soon as you enter the lounge after you've done shooting, it locks you out of the ranges and all that stuff. So they kind of had that part figured out, and they're actually expanding across the country right now too. They're about to break ground in Kansas, and then Philly and Dallas, I think, are next on their radar. So, but we will definitely get you out here, and we'll
let's talk offline about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that you trained jiu-jitsu. How long you been doing that?
I can't say. I stopped the second year in retirement.
Okay.
Because I got busy doing other things, and there's so many skill sets that are trite if you don't use them.
Right.
And it was a skill set that I'd done really well at, and I'm like, you know what? The time commitment to be average is taking away from some of the other things that I needed to do. And I'm 50, so
yeah, I spend a lot of time training to be average. So. All right. Well, appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate what you have to say. And hopefully we'll see you in Omaha here down the road.
We'll make it happen.
Yep. All right.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye now.